Hi everyone, welcome to Hazel Grove Garden again. It's getting very cold here in Melbourne. We're really into the swing of winter and a lot of stuff in the garden is starting to die down for its winter dormancy, including the plants that are in my little water pond here. I made this water pond about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. And I made a video back then of when I actually got the plants dormant and of me potting them up. So I thought you might like to see how I get my pond plants prepped for winter, give the pond a little clean out, and they'll be right until the spring and they start to grow again. So it's 2 years later now, and you can see that they've actually done really well. I've actually not fertilized them since I originally planted them up. And despite that, they've done incredibly well. The water lily is starting to die down, so when we pull that out, you can't see it now because it's all pretty much died back for winter, but when I pull it out, I'll show you what that looks like. But they've actually done incredibly well, and I think I actually made a really good choice with the 3 plants that I planted. So we'll pull them out and show them each to you, and just a quick little way of cleaning them up. The water has surprisingly stayed very, very clear, which goes to show that I really haven't which is good because I haven't over fertilized them. Putting too much fertilizer in your water plants actually just leads to a lot of leaching into the water and a lot of algal growth. So the limited fertilizer in the water plants will actually help keep the water clearer, because the plants will actually use up all that excess nitrogen and feed for themselves and limit the algal growth. So let's get the plants out, have a look at each of them and tidy them up. So the plants have actually grown really well and really healthy the whole time, and they don't actually require too much maintenance. Really it's just getting rid of the dead stuff and refreshing the water. So we'll start the first plant, which is actually right down the bottom because it needs a reasonable depth, is this little water lily. Now this water lily, a bit of the other plants grown into it there, but this water lily is actually a dwarf water lily, and you can see it's already died down completely, so there's very, very little I actually need to do here. Really I'm just sort of checking over the top of it and make sure that there's not too much dead stuff left behind, but you can see all the roots and the little crown of it just there. And I don't think, looking at it, maybe I'll just have a look on the bottom. Yeah, it doesn't look very root bound, so I don't think it needs to be divided. Water lilies after a while can actually fill up the pot and really cause a lot of, they can get very restricted, and so you actually need to pull them apart and divide them. So I don't think this one needs it at the moment. The roots are still relatively loose in there. It hasn't bulked out too much. So there's not a lot I need to do with the water lily. I've just, like I said, I just pulled out any sort of dead foliage, dead leaves off the top. I might give that a little top up with some gravel shortly, but apart from that, that one's actually looking okay. The next one is this one at the back here. As you can see, it's actually this is actually a native Australian plant, and it actually will put out, it'll actually grow and spread out pretty much like a ground cover, but for water. And as you can see, I just pulled that one out of the water lily. So we'll put that aside. Maybe I'll pot that up and use it for other plants later, but we'll get the big one out. And yes, over the last 2 years, he's really sort of matted himself into the pond. Now you don't have to pull them out of the pond, especially if you've got like a really big plant and a really big pond. You don't actually have to pull them out. You can actually just clean them up within the pond, but because this is such a small little water butt, I can actually just pull them out and I can completely refresh the water. So with this one, once again, there's not a lot that needs cleaning up. I'm just going to have to prune some of the dead stuff out. There's also a little weed that's decided to grow in there, so I can pull that out as well. But once again, it's very healthy, lots of new growth. It's really just the dead stuff and just thinning it out so it doesn't drop too much dead stuff into the pond over the winter, because all the dead foliage and stuff does add nutrients and raises the nitrogen level in the soil, in the water, which is actually what causes a lot of the problems with algal growth. So yeah, removing all of that dead foliage and such is actually a good thing. As you can see, it's really matted, it's put its roots out, and it's growing really healthy. It's probably due for a pot up, but I'll get to that at a later stage. I don't really have time to do it right now. Really, right now I'm just going to give it a clean up and get it ready to go to sleep. And the last one is this Carex grass. Once again, another native, and it's actually once again a native that is local to our area. Now this one, I actually might have to leave it because and clean it up on the surface, because its roots, it has rooted itself, as you can probably see, masses of roots. And actually, you might be able to see under there is a brick. I've put bricks in here so I can basically raise up the pots to the right level that they would need to be in a pond. And this has put out so many roots, it's actually gripping on to the brick. So once again, I will pull it out just so I can empty out the pond and put some completely fresh water in there. But yeah, as you can see, it is really growing very, very well, very vigorously. And actually it's quite interesting because it's not only has it put all its roots out, it's actually putting out a new little runner to produce a whole new plant. So yeah, they've done very well. So we'll take those out, clean out the water, give them a clean up, and we'll put fresh water in and go from there. Going to pour a bit of water over fresh water over the water lily, just to allow me to see it a bit better. And it's good actually, because it's just a bit more dead foliage in there. So one more little rinse. Yeah, that looks pretty good. And pretty much all it needs is just a little bit of a top up with some gravel. Bit of fresh gravel just on the top. Gravel doesn't really do much apart from just helps reduce the amount of soil and clay that starts rising to the top. Just helps keep the top a lot cleaner and protects the crown, so that the new little shoots can come out of there in the spring. The water lily is, like all water lilies, are planted fairly deeply, so this will go right on the base of the pond. We'll deal with this one now, because it has a lot of, actually going to prune it back quite a bit. Try and leave a bit of foliage because we will still want it to photosynthesize, but really, I want to just try and get rid of the worst of the material. A better view there. So just going through, getting rid of anything completely dead, trimming back some of the longer, older shoots, and the stuff that's growing out the side I'm just going to take off completely because we don't want it to overtake. It's been pretty good actually. It hasn't completely overtaken the other plants. It can, you see this naturally in creeks and rivers, and it can absolutely just mat an area, but it hasn't really done that in our little pond, which is a good indication that we've actually got a good balance of plants in there, because they're competing with each other in a healthy way, keeping each other in check, without one plant dominating over the others. So we'll just tidy that up. I think we've got rid of most of the stuff that's really dead. This one won't go, this will go slightly dormant over the winter period, but it won't go completely dormant like the water lily will. Actually, yeah, I think I might actually just take this whole bit that's grown out the side, take that whole bit off, just pull it away, just so it doesn't completely overtake the other plants and fill up the pond. Pull this little weed out. Get in there. Pull him out. There we go. Side. Take him off. And with him, he's fairly shallow, not completely on the bottom of the pond, but just poke out the surface. So pop him at the back there. To start with. And last but not least, this lovely Carex. And there's not much to do with this actually. Just need to, you can probably hand pull some of this dead stuff, but once again, there's not a lot to clean up. Some dead stuff in the centre, and actually I don't even need the secateurs for this. It's coming out quite easily. Give it a little bit of a root prune. See all of that excess root I've taken off. There's lots of lovely white feeder roots still in there, so that's going to be absolutely fine. And this time of year just reduces the, because it's going dormant, it's not going to be under as much stress removing those roots. In the spring, it'll put all those roots back on and get lots of lovely fresh growth. Now with this one, he needs to sit near the top a bit more, so I'll pop him. I have 3 layers for this fella. He'll happily just sit there right at the top. Last thing to do is just to top it up with some fresh water. Now, you can use tap water, there's nothing wrong with that, but generally, if you're going to use tap water, because of the not chlorine, because of the treatments and everything they'll put in it, it's usually good to leave it, put the water in, leave it for a couple of days, just for some of those chemicals and treatments to disperse a little bit. It doesn't make that much of a difference. You can put the water in straight away and it usually doesn't have any issues. Best thing to use is rainwater. If you've got rainwater is absolutely perfect. But if you don't have rainwater, nothing wrong with tap water. If you can leave it for 3 days before you put the plants back in, great. If you can't, it's not a big issue. So we'll refill this and job done. That's it. It's all complete now. The water's a bit murky now, but within a few hours time, all of the dust and the little bits of dirt and such that are floating around in there will sink to the bottom and the water will be lovely and clear. And I'll just need to keep an eye on it through the winter because the plants won't be growing as much, so they're not going to be using up the nutrients as much in the water, just to make sure the algae doesn't take hold. But otherwise, it's ready to go to sleep for winter. Thanks a lot, guys. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you've enjoyed the video and you want to see some more, please like and subscribe to stay up to date, and we'll see you all in the next video.